Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Katherine Eicher. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. Today, joining me, our Raptors HQ friend, editor-in-chief, it's Chelsea Leite. How you doing?
Good. I mean, still trying to wake up from the game yesterday, like being out late, but good.
Where did Kyle Lowry take you? Like, what happened? What was the post-game party like?
Oh, right. Oh man. I did see him. I was like walking into the media room and him and Kia Nurse were having a chat and I had to like pass them. And Kia obviously is very nice and said hey. And then he looked at me and was like, "Hey, it's so nice to see you." And I was like, "Okay, hi." So
Were you even back there during his run?
During his run? No,
you didn't have a media pass during his run.
No.
So he doesn't actually know you.
No, yeah. I was like, and then I was talking and like I was like, he said this to me, and like he doesn't know me, so it's just like a funny anecdote now. And they're like, no, there's like a good chance he reads, like he's read your stuff, because like apparently he reads things. Like apparently he watches every Raptors game and like reads things.
So that's
like,
incredible.
There's like a good chance he's seen you on like a podcast, or he's like there's a good chance he actually said good to see you because he knows who you are. And I was like, that's wild.
That is wild.
Yeah. So who knows if Kyle Lowry, if you're watching this, good to see you.
It always, Kyle, if you're watching this, hello.
The audience you've never had.
I have tiny championship art on my wall next to poetic justice art and Vince Carter. So there you go. Kyle, you're in good company. That's so funny. That's so wild. I mean, one thing that really I find particularly funny is that every time he comes back to Toronto now, all the media are like, so you're still gonna retire a Raptor? Like, he gets this question every time, and every time he's like, yes, I will sign a 1 day or a 10-day to retire as a Raptor. Like, he just keeps repeating himself, and it's just so funny to me that he keeps like, we're like, are you sure? Are you sure?
No, but he's like, he was so excited to be there last night. Like, he was jazzed. And I mean, that's his personality. He just has a very bubbly personality, but like, he was like talking to people. Like he took time to like talk. Like, I was watching him talk to people and I was like, damn, like they announced his name and he was like so excited. And like, I was like, damn, like this guy just really loves this city, which is like cool.
Love Kyle. It's so funny that he keeps getting asked that, but also like it's gonna be a sad day when that happens, like when he retires and he comes back. I feel like it's gonna be emotional. We're gonna have, obviously yet another tribute video and stuff like that, but it is very nice. I mean, I really think he is trying to secure that statue. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, and honestly, it'll be sad, but also it'll be like really fun. I think, like just celebrating him. I'm sure they'll make it like a whole like week kind of thing. So like, I'm sure there'll be so many events surrounding it as well, and I feel like it'll be like fun just to be at. So it'll be emotional, but like also very like fun to celebrate.
It'd be nice if some of the other like championship teammates came out for that, like if Serge Ibaka came out or Gasol, you know what I mean? Like that would be cool just to like have a little baby reunion,
Oh, I'm sure they would. That would be fun.
Yeah. Okay, I wasn't gonna get into the statue talk, but I have opinions. Okay. First of all, if we have a Kyle statue, is he taking a charge?
Ooh, that's hard because usually they do like the layup kind of vibe.
Yeah, but he's not known for that. He doesn't have like a signature pose.
Yeah, except I feel like they should take a picture of when he took a charge in the All-Star game.
Yeah,
and that is the statue.
Yeah, like that, because that's his most famous charge.
Yeah, which I feel like I've talked about that like 7 times in the past 2 weeks because I was on Freddie's podcast where I had to bring it up. So
yeah, leave it to Freddie and I to be the ones to do that.
Yeah.
Athlete wise, like my legit answer is the Toronto Blue Jays, Joe Carter actually deserves a statue. Because he's a 2-time champion. He had that epic grand slam. He has the famous celebration with his arms out. Like, I don't know. To me, it's like, how does Joe Carter not have a statue? I'm not even a baseball fan.
Maybe Toronto's statue budget is just like not.
Yeah, we only had enough for Ted Rogers. All right, let's get into some NBA talk here. The IST is underway. We're recording this on Thursday during the day, so the semifinals will happen by the time this is out on Friday. Feel free to delight and laugh at our wrongful predictions. Sometimes it's just how the timing works out, but we have a very exciting tournament so far. I feel, like I was really enjoying these games. I was really hoping that the Sacramento Kings would come out on top because I really wanted our Kings Pacers finale. But nonetheless, they lose to the Pelicans. They're going to go up against the Lakers, and then we also have the Pacers against the Bucks. How do you think this is going to shake out, and who do you think we're going to see facing off on Saturday night?
I honestly think it's like a testament to the success of the tournament that there's like a little bit of like a standings parity when it comes to these final four. Like you have the Bucks, who are championship contenders. You have the Pacers, who are a really exciting, like young team that have been, kind of building over the past couple of years. You have the Lakers, who are just kind of like a standard TV presence. You always want the Lakers if you're like, national television. And then you have the Pelicans, who like have struggled, and everybody just kind of wants to succeed because, Zion and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's like a good group of four. I think it's good television. I think that it's shaken out in a way that like people are talking about it, and I think it would have been boring if it was just like the top four teams in the NBA. Like, I think it's fun that it's these like four teams who are very different and will give us a good show. And I mean, I would love to see the Pacers make it. I think like when I saw that game that they played against the Raptors, I was like so pleasantly surprised with how exciting they were to watch and how fun it was. And I mean, I'm not gonna throw out the conspiracy that it's rigged or anything, but I think the Lakers have a pretty good chance of making
Okay, but that timeout call was pretty brutal. Like I was watching that game live and I was like, what is this? And I'm not even like a Phoenix Suns like fan. And I was like, this is just flat out wrong. Like if I were Frank Vogel, I would have gotten myself tossed out of the game.
Yeah.
At that point, like that is like so egregious. And then I think like the NBA refs like released this statement being like Austin Reeves had the ball between his hand and his calf, which is technically possession, and like blah blah blah. I'm like, this man had no control of the ball. Like none.
It's bad when they have to release a statement. Like, come on.
Yeah. And then just trying to justify it. I think that makes it worse, because I just feel like, a couple weeks ago, I was going on and on about players versus refs and how I feel like tension is kind of high right now. But yeah, I just, man, that was really, really bad. Really bad. Definitely felt rigged, but also like, aside, okay, here's my hot little take. A lot of people after that game were like, if you're the Phoenix Suns, you don't want to leave a game up to the refs. You don't want to get it down to the wire like that. They had a bunch of turnovers that game and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't exactly their best game. Fair. However, you can have one of the best games of your life and still be in a close game.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean? Like the NBA is competitive.
Yeah.
So this whole idea of like, oh, you don't want to leave the game up to the refs and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can do everything right and the game could still come down to a last call.
Yeah.
So I just don't buy into that philosophy at all. Anyway, that's my hot take. I just haven't heard anyone say that.
Yeah, no, that's valid. It's like, there's certain things like, like you could make more free throws and you can do this, you can do that. But when you have two really, really good teams with the like level of stardom that is between Phoenix and the Lakers, like it's no surprise that it comes down to the wire. Because
no one's surprised that that's a close game.
Yeah, exactly. It's not saying like, oh, this team shouldn't have done that. It's like, no, like you're playing so well that you're keeping up with LeBron James, even like 37-year-old LeBron James. So, it's like
he's going to be 38 like any day now.
Oh,
no, isn't he going to be 39?
I think he's 37 now. I don't know.
We're going to Google this.
Yeah. But yeah, it's wild. I like I think it's cool.
He's 38 and he's going to be
Oh,
39 on December
yeah.
30th.
Get it, LeBron. Which I think is cool. Like, I think it's cool that players are playing late. Like, Sue Bird played till 40, like 41. Diana
Yeah.
Taurasi's like refusing to hang it up. Like, I love it. I'm like, I think it's sick.
Yeah, I do too. I love it. And it also just makes me feel better about myself.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I feel like people are like, oh, you got to hang it up, whatever, your body this, your body that. But like, this stack is thrown around a lot, but LeBron spends like $1 million every year on his body, like keeping his body right. Like, technology is so nuts now that like if you wanted to be like 56 and playing in the NBA, like I'm sure we could get you like a robotic knee and you could go off. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And I think like, you know, even somebody like Vince Carter, who played until I want to say 40.
I think it was like 41.
Yeah, I think he was 41.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, at that stage of his career, very much a role player. And but also, you know, a great presence. Still had more minutes than Udonis Haslam, right? In his final year. And I think a lot of players that are kind of like in the middle are looking at that being like, hey, like I can keep collecting checks.
Yeah.
If I maintain my health and blah, blah, blah. So I feel like, you know, the narrative on all of this has really shifted. But I think with LeBron, you know, just bringing it back to the IST, at this point in his career, he is trying to have his name in the record books as many times as possible in as many ways as possible. He just needs his name etched in there in every which way possible. Like, it's not just about the IST, it's about the IST MVP if there is one.
Yeah,
or like
there is.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like he needs it. And I feel like he wants it, and I think that's kind of funny that at his stage in his career, you think he would care less and like the younger players would care more about this, but he cares just as much, if not even more.
I mean, yeah, we love like a career-driven king, like, you know. I'm career-driven. I know a lot of people career-driven, you know. Why should that go away just because, you know, you're 39 almost? And, you know, on a team that is probably not going to go very far, but whatever. It's like chill. It's cool.
Yeah, he has to be like, at least I got this.
Yeah, he has to be like, oh, and you know that if the Lakers win the first in-season tournament, that they're going to take that narrative and run for it for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Like, if LeBron James wins the first in-season tournament, it's going to be like all the news. It's going to be all the whatever.
They don't get a banner, do they?
I have no problem. If it's LeBron,
they can't.
Adam Silver's going to give LeBron what he wants,
they
man.
Can't get a banner.
It'll be a little one, just like a little mini banner.
Or like when they finally build the LeBron statue, will it say like IST
in season
MVP?
Yeah,
just at the bottom.
It'll take his little Tiffany trophy and go put it.
So you're predicting that the Lakers are going to go all the way in this thing?
I don't want to be that person that's like everything's rigged, but honestly, I feel like it's in the league's best interest for a team like the Lakers to win. Like, it's like, at the end of the day, what is this in-season tournament about? Money, viewership, hype.
The rich get richer.
The rich get richer. And like, if LeBron adds something else to his thing, it's good for the league. It's like, as much as sometimes, like, I'm in that group, like sometimes it's annoying that like the narrative is always about LeBron James, but like, it's good for their business. I don't know. Like, I hate being that person that like, it's a business, but like, at the end of the day, it is. He's good. He loves a performance. He loves a moment. I think there's a lot of other people on that team that also love a moment. And at the end of the day, it's going to be good for the brand if that happens. And honestly, I think based on the teams that are still in it, maybe if it was the Bucks and the Lakers, maybe I would take the Bucks. But also, maybe I wouldn't. Who knows?
I think, like, you know, again, we don't think the NBA is rigged. And if it is, like, you should really hire me as a writer. I'd be really good at it.
Right.
But I feel like, you know, this is an opportunity for the NBA to showcase its younger talent, right? For the casuals to learn who's next. right? So I think like there is a world where like if it's the Pelicans and the
Mhm.
Pacers, which I don't necessarily think it would be, although I think that would be very fun.
Yeah.
You know, that's such a great way to be like, hey, casual NBA fans, here's who's on the come up. Here's who's next. Here's who's going to be like, you know, potentially like the future like big deals of this league.
Yeah.
I feel that way more about Indiana than the Pelicans for obvious reasons, but
Yeah.
it's still cool that the Pelicans even made it this far. I don't think anybody predicted that, but I
Yeah,
mean, if
I
I'm a
honestly
betting person, I think it's going to be Lakers and Bucks, and
yeah.
then whew,
It's
I
hard
don't
in that situation.
yeah, it's hard. There's part of me that
Yeah.
logically wants to pick the Bucks, and then there's a part of me that
Yeah.
illogically thinks like LeBron is just going to go off.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know? And it would be, don't get me wrong, I would love if it was the Pacers and the Lakers. Like, that's good TV. That's like Tyrese Halliburton, like young up and comer against LeBron James, like boom, boom, boom. Like, oh, that's good TV. But yeah, it's definitely like it's hard for me to think of a scenario in which the Lakers don't like go off on like a 50-point LeBron James performance, which they play on NBA TV every day for the next like 17 weeks. Like, you know. So that's my take on it, but
yeah. Either way, I think we have an exciting like couple nights coming up, and you know, obviously the tournament has been a success, you know, basketball courts aside. It kind of makes me wonder, like, is December and January going to be a bit more boring? Like, I know we'll have trade talk, but like, will the games be as exciting?
It's always, this is like a rough time in NBA season, December especially, because you're starting to I can't even speak. You're starting to get into that like slag of like the grind. I don't want to call it because that's
like personally, I think the IST should take place a little later.
Yeah, like January.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so, because when the season first starts, you're just like, okay, basketball's back.
Yeah.
And that can last you like at least a month. Anyway, that's just
January's rough, yeah, and especially I think like the Raptors always go on like a big road trip in January. That's usually how the schedule ends up working out, and I feel like it would like not that I want to center everything around the Raptors, but like I don't know, I feel like January is a rough time for everyone. Like it's like bleh outside for us anyway, and it would be like exciting to have that like excitement instead of it gets. I'm not someone who like likes trade talk very much, so I get very like annoyed with all of it in January. I'm like, this sucks. So it'd be fun to have something like fun to like root for. So yeah, I
agree. I think like the trade talk, it just drags on. That's the problem. It just drags on. So then it's like you're talking about like the same like 5 players with different scenarios for like 6 weeks. You're trying to figure out if like a team's gonna blow up or not, and
they never do it until like the days before, like days before. So it's like, why are we talking about this on January 1st? When the trade deadline's on like February, whatever it is on,
it might even give the IST like higher stakes
true
to have it closer to the trade deadline.
Adam Silver, like these are the 2 people that you need to be like hiring right now.
We need to be hired.
Catherine and me are the ideas people.
We are the ideas people. We are the writers. We are the consultants.
It's true.
Okay, speaking of Adam Silver, he did a very bizarre interview the other day where okay, I have so much he compared himself to Henry Kissinger, referred to Harry Kissinger as, quote, one of the great global diplomats. Said he's a big believer in a strong military. Went on a and then he tried to humble himself and being like, well, I'm not a diplomat, I'm just a sports executive. But sports, very big deal globally and politically and otherwise, in very vague, non-specific ways. He then went on a tangent about children with diabetes. I'm not making this up. He went on a tangent about children who are obese and children with diabetes and how they need sports and they need to run around, and we need to encourage kids to run more.
No, this is no. I'm like, no.
This is a wild interview. It's a wild clip. We rarely see Adam Silver unhinged. This is the thing. We rarely see him unhinged. He looks poised. He looks like himself, but the words coming out of his mouth are just different for this man. Also, I have a lot to say about this interviewer, Pat McAfee, a former NFL player.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Chelsea, we gotta vent about this for a minute before we get into Adam Silver. This man looks like he looks like he just came from the gym and didn't have time to shower before this interview. He's wearing like a tank top, you know those like tank tops that guys wear that have like the very big armpit cutouts.
Yeah, so you can see their pecs.
Yeah, so you can see their pecs, and it says like NBA in season. It looks like a very cheap tank top. The reason why this bothers me, and I'm part of me is like, you know what, individualism, expression, blah blah blah. Yes, sure. I have pajamas that look more professional than what this guy is wearing. Like, I can't, as a woman, I can't dress like that and interview Adam Silver.
That's a huge thing.
So it just bugs me. It just bugs me.
No, I feel that a lot. Like, I go to the Raptors games like as media or whatever, and I feel this like, not this need, but I feel a little bit more pressure to like step it up in terms of outfits. And I just like playing with my fashion and stuff. So like that's one thing. But like sometimes I look around and I'm like, if I came in like just my casuals, like what would that say compared to like others that are coming? Like, don't get me wrong, there's no dress code, but like sometimes I feel such a pressure to like present myself as a woman, like being like, okay, I'm profestional, like I'm meant to be here. And like,
and then you see Alex Wong in track pants. No, I don't know.
No, those guys are always looking fresh, but
yeah,
it's just like, I don't know. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, technically I do have the ability to come here in like jeans and a t-shirt and just vibe, but like, I don't know, like part of me is like, I'm supposed to be acting, and maybe that's my own imposter syndrome, but it's like, yeah, you can't just like show up in a tank top to interview the commissioner of the NBA. Like, it's not vibes.
Yeah, I agree. Look, if we were former NFL players, then I guess we could wear whatever we want. But no, I don't think that's not imposter syndrome, Chelsea. I think that's like just wise on your part. I think that just makes sense that you would want to dress professionally for your job. And even though you're not necessarily obligated to, I just feel like that's smart. Anyway, I just had to vent about the way this man looks because it irks me. But let's get into Adam Silver comparing himself to a literal war criminal and referring to him as one of the great global diplomats. That is very wild to me.
That's wild. Okay, so the news of Henry Kissinger dying came out like during a Raptors game. And so we're all sitting there, and our good friend Louis Satzman, who sits beside me at the games, love that guy, was like, oh, like Henry Kissinger died. That's fun. And I was like, I didn't really know who he was, like, if we're going to be honest. So I did a little Googling. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, glad this man is now dead. That was the vibe. And like, yeah, we were just like making like little fun kicks at it all night. But there's this weird thing when it comes to like capitalism and the Venn diagram of like capitalists and like war criminals. And I know I'm just saying like very basic world economics, but it's a circle. Which is so frustrating for like the normal peoples of the world who just want to like be able to afford rent and like food and stuff, to like have the people that you like not work for, because I don't work for Adam Silver, but like, I don't know, the like people who run things like sports that are supposed to be like fun and like take our minds off of things. And like, and I know that like everything is inherently political, but like, it's like, really, man, you could have just not said that. Like, you could have just shut your mouth.
Yeah, well, I think he just let a little bit of his narcissism out, that he feels some sort of kinship with such a person, which is the impression I get from watching this clip. I mean, and then, but also too, like the question the question was about sports' role in politics, which is actually a very interesting conversation, and it was asked in such a just as it was asked in a way that was as casual as his outfit.
Like a side note of like people go to journalism and media school for years, and then we let this NBA tank top wearing man do a giant interview like this. Like, what?
It's just such a missed opportunity because it's such a great idea to ask Adam Silver this question.
Yeah, but if it was
especially when he's in the mood to compare himself to Henry Kissinger, like this is like the moment to like lean in and like double down on it and like to keep going.
And you know who would have done that? Malika Andrews. So that's who should have been doing it.
Shout out to Malika Andrews. She gets a lot of hate online.
It's so frustrating. Anyway,
it's kind of beyond. Yeah. But anyway,
I could talk about that for like 8 years. But anyway, back to this.
Do we the conversation I want to have aside from Adam Silver going off the rails is like, sports and politics. Like, do you feel like the NBA should be more involved?
Yes and no. I do think that the NBA has a lot of potential to do really good things for communities. And I'm going to bring this back a little bit to the Raptors, but I just spent like the past 2 weeks working on a Giants of Africa project, and saw like how fantastic basketball can be used to like impact people worldwide. Because at the end of the day, all you need is like a basketball and a hoop and all that stuff. And I think it has the ability to like bring people together in community and teach a lot of life skills that are what's the word I'm looking for, that like can kind of traverse the world and like no matter what like area you're in, like basketball skills can be translated whether you live in Canada, America, Europe, Africa, wherever, right? So I do think that the NBA has a lot of potential to do a lot of community good and like to impact young people, because again, we live in like an influencer culture and like they should be using their platform for that. At the same time, it gets really frustrating when, things like politics, and it's the same thing I just said, where people go to media school and then, it's football players who get to conduct the interviews. It's like people study their whole lives about world affairs and politics and know legislation and laws. And then you have like a businessman coming in and like making comments about world politics. Like I don't know. I think that the NBA should be involved in some aspects of like world politics, but I do think that like also there's an aspect of like staying in your lane and like leaving it to people who actually know what's going to impact the world best. And don't get me wrong, the current like politics people, wow, am I forgetting what politicians, there we go, that's the word. Current politicians aren't really like doing a great job at the world, but like the younger generation that is coming up, I have a lot of faith in. So it's just like, I don't know, it's like a weird balance of the NBA having the potential to do a lot of good and influence a lot of people, but they need to like work with the right people and have the right like people working on it, because Adam Silver is not the guy to be commenting or like trying to like steer the NBA's direction of policy, I think.
Well, I think too, like my sort of like thing that I've noticed with the NBA over the last few years is that this is just my opinion, that their political points of view are just solely based on how they feel it will help or hurt their profits.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, in 2020 during the NBA bubble, there was a lot of political messaging.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realized that it didn't necessarily help their ratings.
Yeah.
And then when the season came back in 2021, all that messaging was gone. Mm-hmm. But those issues still persist.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason why the NBA couldn't continue to have like a Black Lives Matter on the basketball courts like they did before.
Yeah.
But they just realized like, oh, this isn't helping our business.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take it off. This is just my opinion as to why that messaging was removed.
Yeah. And
somebody
it's rough because like you see it work in the WNBA. Like
it does work in the WNBA.
And I mean, it's different because the audience of the WNBA is obviously a bit more tolerant.
They're a different audience.
Yeah, it's
they
different
are.
audience, but it's just.
But also too, like, let's like, you know, even like Ja Morant, for example, being suspended 25 games because there was a video of him having guns. The league decided that this hurts their image. The fact that hurts their image more than like Miles Bridges, for example, is disheartening in my opinion. And I mean, I don't want to go too far down a road with this, but I'm just saying, like, their political messaging solely revolves around profits anyway.
Oh, 100%.
And so it's like, it's kind of weird for like Adam Silver to like sit on his high horse and, you know, say like, yeah, like basketball has like this huge role to play when he is actively chosen for the NBA to not play that role.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
No, yeah. And it's totally valid because at the end of the day, they're a business. And we see that in everything that the NBA does. Like, it's all about the profit. Like, we were just talking about the in-season tournament. And
I could write a massive editorial about
that. Same. And it's just like that. And again, we won't get too much into the whole, like, Miles stuff and the Ja Morant stuff or whatever. Because, again, like, I'm just going to get really angry. And then everyone's going to be like, nah. But it's just, like, it's so frustrating, especially in an era where, like, women are coming up and becoming so much more prominent in sports, not just women's sports, but like the NBA. Like, as someone who like works on an NBA team's beat, like, there's so many women in our space. And the fact that like this league continuously just like reminds us that that their messaging like isn't for us is just like, really? Like, you could be doing so much better. It's it's so easy to just kick this one man out of the league when you have 1,700 other young kids who could just replace him. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just frustrating. And so that's why I'm very hesitant about the NBA having such a role in politics. I do think that they have the potential to do a lot of good, but also they have proven time and time again that their interests aren't exactly aligning with what needs to be done in terms of world politics, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Anyways, really fun tangent by Adam Silver. Highly recommend you check out that interview. It's really bizarre. And
the diabetes stuff, like, why?
Like, if chances are, if you're a kid with diabetes, you were born with diabetes.
Yeah, it's type 1. Like, there's nothing. Again, like, something else that I've written about.
Like, if you obtained diabetes as a child because your parents were neglectful, that's not due to lack of exercise. That is like a much bigger issue.
Yeah. Oh man.
So what we've learned is that Adam Silver knows very little about diabetes.
Yeah, we should have.
But shout out to you if you have diabetes. Like,
yeah, shout out. I have a few friends that do, and they're just like phenomenal people who like deserve all of the respect that
and are in shape, like,
yeah, and are just like living their lives and don't need to run more according to Adam Silver.
Yeah. Like, running more is not their issue. I have a friend, Daniel Rosenberg, shout out, born with diabetes. He told me the other day, he was like, my first kiss was at diabetes camp, and I couldn't stop laughing because I was like, I had no idea diabetes camp.
Yeah,
I had no idea there was a diabetes camp.
Oh yeah, I have a friend.
That's great though. I love that exists.
Yeah, I have a friend, Taylor. Her name's Taylor. She's a comedian who has type 1 diabetes and has like built this like wonderful platform, like, you know, just as like trying to build community and stuff like that. And like, I wrote this like piece for her for CBC once, and like her whole thing is like trying to like do comedy and stuff around diabetes and like stuff like that to like poke fun at it and stuff. And they have like all these events and stuff for people, and like the community is, you know, seems to be very like lighthearted and fun and stuff like that. So it's just like, love that for that, like, you know, that they have built this nice community with each other. But it's just, then it's also frustrating because you realize how uninformed people are about certain aspects of diabetes and like other things, like Adam Silver. Like, did this man not get a brief before he's decided to go, or was this just random at the top of his head? Like,
it was definitely off the top of his head.
I'm sure his PR people were sitting there like, stop it.
Yeah. I'm sure they were like, let's hope
he's like in his in-ear.
let's
Someone's
hope
just, like,
the
screaming.
Diabetes whatever American Association doesn't get a hold of this.
Yeah. Next November for Awareness Month, they're just gonna like be like, this man is wrong. Oh
Oh
man.
God. All right, let's move on. I had a well, actually, we're kind of I had a topic here, but we can cut it just to move on to Raptors stuff here if you're good with that.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to our Raptors Homer moment. This is a kind of a running theme this year. I've had multiple people come on this show. Lewis Zatzman used this analogy, and Oren Weisfeld used this analogy, and that is kicking the can down the road. I don't know why this is an analogy that keeps getting brought up, but the Raptors are kicking this proverbial can down a road, and a lot of people are wondering, have we reached the end of the road?
I just want to start singing Boys to Men right now, but I'm not going to do that.
Please. Well, actually, I don't want the video to get taken off of YouTube.
Yeah, so sorry,
Because you sound so much
like Boys to Men. Okay. Is the question, do I think it's the end of the road?
Yes.
It's rough. I do think, and I hate to like bank stuff on the trade deadline because personally I hate the trade deadline. Not that I hate the concept of it, but like the time when that time of the year is very frustrating. But I do think that just like we saw last year, the Raptors are going to be a really big factor in the NBA trade deadline. And unlike last year, they need to do something. And I mean, they did need to do something last year, but my opinion is that as much as as like a homery fan, don't want to like move certain players of the team, I think from like a success perspective, things need to change. And I was thinking about this morning, like about last night's game. Like there's so many good pieces on our team, and I understand what the vision was, and I understand what the idea was, I think, because you have these players who are so good individually. Like you think about Siakam last night dropping 30 points. You think about OG Anunoby, defensive player of the year. You think about Scotty Barnes, who's coming up as this like incredible player that I'm just like, he's having a great year. But something like isn't working. And I do think that somewhat has to do with the fact that there's no like, and Dennis Schroeder is very new and stuff, so obviously I don't want to like pin everything on him, but I do think there needs to be a little bit more of like a cohesive vision when it comes to the facilitation of offense on this team. And so I don't know, I do think that we need to like figure out, and I mean, people keep asking him aside, like, what's the vision? What's the vision? And he doesn't really say, but like, I do think that like moves need to happen because something about this team isn't clicking. And I do think that this is a good time to maybe trade someone, see if you can put something together by the end of the year, and then go into free agency with a clear plan. Because, and I mean, my opinion of this, I think, isn't going to change from now to the trade deadline. I say keep Anunoby, keep Barnes, and everybody else is kind of up for trade if that's, the direction you go into. I think OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes are two very unique players that we need to build around. And I think that they need to figure out what building around them is going to look like, because right now things aren't working. And, we see glimpses of what this team could be. But again, it's not anything to do with skill. I think it has to do with cohesion and fit and vision. And there's just something lacking in that right now.
I completely agree. Like, I feel like, last year, I mean, I'm on the record saying that I'm not pro tanking. But
Yeah.
I say that to say I only have this opinion in hindsight. So I really feel like, when we look at what they did last year, which was very little, and then losing Fred for nothing, which I'm not saying we should have signed Fred, but it was just disappointing.
Yeah, we should
to lose someone like Fred for nothing. We should have traded Fred.
Like,
and I just feel like, and then also just like last year's draft. I mean, if there was ever a draft to tank for, last year's draft was the draft to do that. I mean, San Antonio got it right. Like, they had their eyes on Wemby from a long time. They traded DeJounte Murray. They trade Jakob Poeltl. They make sure that they're in that range to get a top pick, and they committed to rebuilding. And they have a superstar. I mean, I know Wemby's been inconsistent, but he is a superstar to build around. And I feel like if there was ever a year to tank, that was the year.
Yeah.
And obviously the Tampa season was a year to tank, and we did, and that worked out.
That worked out. But I do think a lot of these teams who have been successful in rebuilding, it's not just 1 year. And again, I don't like the idea of tanking either. But you think about last year where the Raptors were, what the draft was like. You even think about those top 10 picks. You think about like the Thompson brothers. You think about, a couple other pieces in that draft who are making such big impacts on their team now. And it's like, if the Raptors were just a few spaces up in the draft, it could have made such an impact. And now you think about the fact where we have this like Jakob Poeltl trade situation where our pick is kind of in jeopardy now. And it's like, okay. And you think about Fred went on the record a couple of days ago saying that, there was no competition really about whether or not he was going to sign with the Raptors again. So if you knew, like, not that they knew that, but like you should have anticipated that a little bit better and did something better last year. I'm definitely of the belief that like last year's trade deadline was such a missed opportunity to really change the direction of this team, because I think we all saw the writing on the wall that Fred was probably going to not stay. As much as you have hope and whatever, but I think that this year, if they want to kind of like change the narrative of what people are starting to say about this like team and all that stuff, I think that this trade deadline is going to be so important. And what worries me is the fact that I know that this front office is like not very trade deadline positive.
Yeah, Matthias said he doesn't like making big decisions at the trade deadline.
Yeah, but it's like when you think about it, his decisions that he's making at this trade line should be the decisions that have been in the works since not only Fred signing with Houston, but even last trade deadline where you should have been doing stuff he's had the time. So I would be so shocked if the Raptors weren't big players in this trade deadline. And that's why, like, I don't know. It's like, I agree with the guy saying kicking the can down the road as far as February, because it's so hard to figure out what the vision for this team is. One, because a lot of people have asked and there's no clear answer, but it's also like, like what, there's only so far that this team could go with that, and we're seeing that in real time. So you really just need to, and I'm of the belief of building around Anunoby and Barnes. Like, it's just, as much as I'm so like, it's sad as a fan to think about the other, pieces going, but it's just, you have to think about the future. And based on what I've seen this year, there's a vision that I would go, and I mean, I'm not a basketball executive, but there's a vision that I would do, and we'll see if that ends up being the one they go with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the lack of vision is what's been the most frustrating either way, right? Like, if we want to be a contender, then we have to act like a contender and be more aggressive about the players that we can get. And then if we don't want to be a contender, we realize we do need to rebuild, then we also have to be aggressive about that. Like, I just feel like the lack of aggression on either side has been the most frustrating as a Raptors fan.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And you think about, we have this like incredible young player to build around, and someone who they already want to build around. We've seen all the reports that Scotty Barnes is not on the trade table. I think obviously that's your vision. Keep him. You throw the bag at OG Anunoby, and I'm going to keep saying that forever, because that guy is just like, his skill set is very unique. And obviously we're seeing how he defends people like Kevin Durant and Giannis and all this stuff. You keep that, throw the bag at him, and then you just like, you build around that. I think that's a very good base to build around. But yeah, it's very wishy-washy either way. And I think like as a player too, like you're kind of sitting there like, okay, are they committing to me? Or are they not? Like that makes you wishy-washy as well. So it's hard.
Right. I agree. On a more optimistic side of the Raptors, there is talk about our depth being maybe more real than it's given credit for, which I think is very intriguing to me. Who off our bench do you feel like deserves a bigger opportunity?
The first thing that's coming up at the top of my head, because we were talking about this in media yesterday, was Grady Dick. And not that he's not getting opportunity, but so people were asking Darko last night about Grady Dick and his assignment to the 905. And Darko said something that like really kind of struck me. He said, the idea is that this guy's going to come in, he's going to play like 15 years in the NBA. So let's not skip any steps. And I was like, that's actually very like smart. When you think about these young guys, he's like Grady Dick's 19 years old. He played 1 year of college, has a lot of potential, obviously. And you think about in any other career, any other thing, like nobody's looking at a 19-year-old at their peak of their career, right? You have to build. And so I think that they're doing really well by Grady Dick, and they have with other players. We've seen the process work out of like them going to the 905, them building their confidence. And I do think that they're doing the right thing by Grady Dick to send him down there. His last game yesterday, he played really well, despite the fact that the 905 lost. And that's just because they're like struggling with a lot of injury and illness right now. But I do think that once Grady Dick gets a little bit more confidence, he gets more reps, he's not just like thrown into this team with not very much vision. He builds the confidence. He grows up a little, not to say that he's not like, an adult, but like,
no, he's a baby. He's 19.
He's a baby. He's 19. I do think that he has the potential to be really good. And I do think the Raptors are doing really good by him to not be, one, immediately writing him off, and two, taking those steps to try and build his confidence and make sure that he's maybe not successful like a big bench player right now, but continues to become something. And maybe, again, if this team ends up going very young in the next couple of years, maybe he ends up being a really big impact down the line. So I do think that he's someone that I would love to keep an eye on over the course of this year. And I do think his rookie season is going to be a little bit more about building confidence and, different from the Scotty Barnes route where like you knew coming in that he was immediately going to make an impact. I think that with Grady Dick, it's a little bit more about building. And you saw where someone like Siakam or Fred VanVleet or Norm Powell was when we first got them, right? And the build of that. So I do think we're in an era of the NBA where everybody wants, and even Darko said this last night too, everybody wants to win right now. Everybody wants everything to happen right now. But I think we need to step back and remember that like development is a thing. And Grady Dick's in a great situation. He has a whole staff of coaches who are like, that's their thing, is developing young players. So that's why, I don't know, I think he is on a good road right now.
Yeah, I think this is a great point. I mean, I feel like, the Raptors used to really hang its hat on being, great with development of players. And I think a huge reason for moving on from Nick Nurse was so we could go back to that, right? Because he was just not a development guy and he wasn't willing to give younger players a chance. And so, yeah, I think that's huge for this team. I think it speaks volumes in terms of like, what we said, vision, in terms of like rebuilding and growth. I think it's kind of, and I mean, maybe I'm reading into the tea leaves a little bit too much, but to me, that is his way of saying like, this is the direction we're going in. Like we need, winning right now isn't necessarily the priority. We need to take a step back and build our talent and give them time. Yeah. And I agree. He absolutely does need that time. And we need to go back to that as a Raptors organization and, go back to that being like what we're known for, what we're proud of. I do think that when it comes to player development, it does ultimately come down to the player. Like, I think the player has more to do with it than any organization ever could. But being an organization that is known for a positive culture and known for building people up is always a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think if the Raptors are going to go young, which seems to be the idea based on the evidence that we're looking at right now, I think, they just need to really like dial in on that and like really be proud of that identity. Because again, it was something that they were really known for a couple of years ago. And, maybe it's just because like I've chatted with a little bit of like the coaching staff and I'm there and I see, what they're talking about and stuff like that. But it's like, you have like such a great team here to motivate young guys. I think that the way that the Raptors built this coaching staff isn't really not like, it's not that they can't be contenders, but I do think they set a standard of development and encouraging young guys and building this culture from the beginning of someone's career and all this stuff. And maybe that's not something that older guys buy into because they want to win right now, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Only one team can win every year, so 29 others have to lose. Like, you have to think about it that way, and eventually you can build to something to win. But I do think, yeah, if we're going young, I think we're setting ourselves up really well to go young, and it's about committing now.
I agree. I see a lot of chatter online of people just being like, hey, Otto Porter Jr. is right there. I don't know why I'm seeing a lot of that more, but I am. Do you think that he's somebody who should be getting more minutes?
Yes and no. I think every time Darko gets asked about this, he says like, yeah, like we're giving him minutes when we do. There's also a lot about like load management and stuff like that. But yeah, I do think there's opportunity for him to get in there a little bit more in terms of minutes. I do think when he doesn't play, it's because of like stuff like load management. But
right.
Yeah, the Raptors could definitely use him a little bit more. He's also a great presence on the bench, but I don't know. It's like,
do you load manage someone who's on their last leg?
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, yes and no. You want to like be respectful of the person's like physical health and stuff like that.
I'm
But
just like thinking as I said that.
Yeah,
like, oh,
no.
God.
No, it's like it's yes and no.
Nice.
Like,
it's not nice to say. It's not nice to say.
But you have a point though. It's like, who knows? His contract's up after this year. Like, who knows what's gonna happen with that? But like, yeah, I don't know. It's like,
yeah, I'd be surprised if another team picked him up, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's like, does he stay, or is this like kind of the end for him, or whatever?
Like, this is likely his last year in the NBA.
Yeah, so it's like, do you use?
So it's like, just go out swinging.
Go out swinging.
No, seriously though,
it's true.
Last year in the league, go out swinging. But what are we load managing him for?
But do you go out swinging on a team that is likely, like, what's the result going to be?
Well, I think for him personally, having some numbers up and some minutes and some reps would be good to be able to say like, hey, I finished my last year doing this, this, and this. If he wants to, you know, maybe it would lead to another team picking him up for another year, you know, like at a veteran minimum or something, because they're like, yeah, he has a ring. Like, let's, you know, he's a solid presence on the bench, you know, it could buy him another year.
Yeah. And I mean,
or if he wants to go play somewhere else, like in Europe or in China or in Australia or something, then it would also be evidence of that. I just, it's like, what are we load managing him for? Unless it's like he is still very injured. But to me, that's not load management. That's just injury.
Yeah. I don't,
because we're not because load management is like preventative. Right?
Yeah. Load management is like, preventative and like
what are we saving him for?
What are we saving?
We're not even we're not even in the IST.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. You have a point. Yeah.
I think at least build him up as a trade asset.
Yeah, maybe that's
like the give vibe. Him 2 months of more minutes so we can be like, hey, look at Otto Porter Jr. these last 2 months.
Yeah.
What do I know? What do I know?
It's like, again, like, you know, it's hard to know why these decisions are being made. And I mean, it's been asked a few times and it's just kind of been like, yeah, like load management, this, that. So yeah,
that's so funny.
Mystery. It is a mystery. And I do think he could be playing more because he's great when it comes to like being a good presence on the floor, slowing things down, calming. Especially again on a young, I think a good, like a factor that you need to think about on a young team as well is having those like older guys who are gonna kind of like calm the waters a little bit. And I don't think older means like, say, like Siakam age where they're still in their prime. I think it's like older in the sense that like we're having a mentorship role right now.
Yeah, but to me that's like what Thaddeus Young is doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Bring back Kyle Lowry for a year. That's
for a whole year. He's like, I'll sign a 1 day, I'll sign a 10 day. And we're like, come back.
What about a year? One more year.
For 40 to 41. I agree. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our hottie highlight of the week. And this is kind of an interesting one. I find this slightly puzzling, but also adorable. And that is Darko basically trying to get the team to have their first winning streak. We have not won more than 2 games in a row this season. And he said if the Raptors win 3 games in a row, he will treat them to dinner. Dinner. These guys can afford dinner. It's cute though. It's cute though. You always want to be treated to something nice, I suppose.
Okay, but like
there's more to the story.
Okay, yeah.
And that is Pascal Siakam said he basically said like whatever the team will pay for that. He said whatever the team will pay for that. And then Darko was like, wait, I'm trying to find the exact quote here.
Yeah, he was like, no, it's me. I'm gonna pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah, Darko was like, when I announced it, Pascal said, yeah, the team is going to pay for that. He thinks I'm cheap, and that's not true.
Well, okay, first of all, that would be like a $20,000 bill to start. Because you think about, A, where these guys are going, 2, how many of them there are, and 3, that they're not afraid to spend a little money on dinner. That's going to be like a $20,000 dinner. Second, can I come? Because like
I know, right?
Anybody will be hype about free dinner. It's me.
Yeah. Take us out,
right? I'm like, anytime I get offered free food, I'm like, broke writer over here. So I think that if the Raptors win 3, I think Darko should take the media out for the dinner. Because really, who's gonna appreciate him?
Yeah, and he needs to suck up to us, let's be honest. No, I'm kidding. But
that's definitely like pandering to the media. But I just I think it's cute. I think it's endearing. I think it's sweet. I think he's trying to build team morale. I would run through a wall for that man. So I don't know. My opinion is very like, I think he's adorable. But I do understand why someone like Pascal would be like, meh.
Listen, this is why Darko was hired.
It's true.
This is why Darko was hired. He is the good vibes guy. He is the anti Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse never bought anyone dinner. No matter how long our win streaks was. Didn't we have like a 14-game win streak? There was no dinner of any kind. So, this is why he was hired. He wasn't necessarily hired to win games. He was hired to get these guys to win at least 3 in a row.
And then go to Red Lobster.
So he can buy them dinner. And then, gosh, do you think, to me, there's tension in this article with Pascal and Darko? It could just be me.
See it a little bit. I also just see how it could be like an offhanded comment that people are running with.
That is also extremely true. But it is a little cynical to be like, whatever, the team will just pay for that.
Yeah.
Because he's been here. And he knows. He knows Darko isn't paying for that dinner.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
and then Darko's like, no, I will pay for the dinner. And it's like, well, you will now. Sorry, Darko.
I definitely see how it could be like misconstrued, or like the tone could have been different, or all of this stuff. Like,
sure.
And I wasn't there, so I don't know what the tone was. But it's just, and I also see where the like I said, I see where like not the frustration, but the comment could have come from in terms of Pascal. But I just think, again, I think it's, and you're right, Darko wasn't hired to come in and immediately win games. He was hired to come in and like implement this new system and give this team a culture shift and develop young players and all this stuff. So it's like a good morale boost. And you think about how this team is really like trying to build a sense of culture, and I think it's like a good thing. And again, he's very sweet and nice,
which is great.
I know, he's just like so.
One thing Pascal said was, he said we got to win games in a row. I think that's just what it is. Good teams have those streaks of just good games where they win games in a row, and I think that's what's missing for us. Which to me is also slightly telling, because he said good teams have those streaks.
I mean, when you look at the Toronto Raptors right now,
Mm-hmm.
you call them a good team.
Exactly.
And I'm not.
This is where there's tension. This is where there's tension.
And I'm not trying to be like a Debbie. Like I always try and like positive spin on this stuff because I'm like, why are we talking about sports just to be like me all the time? But you have to think about where we are right now, and you have to think about like the word good, and you have to think about the place where this team is. And he has a point. Like I'm not trying to be like negative, but it's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I say that I'm not trying to be negative, but there's like people who are like, this team sucks, and I'm like, okay.
Listen, if we win 3 in a row this season,
yeah,
and this dinner happens,
yeah,
you got to get there.
Oh,
you got to get there because someone needs to report on the details
of the dinner.
We want to know.
Glasses on. I'll sit like 2 tables around. I'll only get breadsticks because I know where they go. I'm not going to be able to afford to eat.
Like if they don't let you in, you need to get a job working at the restaurant. Like you just need to like.
I need to get
hired for a day as a dishwasher. Don't wash a single dish.
Yeah,
and just
for the hostess, or I'll like
and
I'll like put on an apron and pretend to be a sommelier or something like that.
Yes. Do they wear aprons? I don't know.
I don't know. I've never worked in a fancy restaurant.
Just Google like tannins and then just
tannins. Yeah. Today, yeah. So, and I'll just go off, and then they'll be like, aren't you that girl from the media room? And I'll be like, that's my twin. Don't you know I have a twin?
You have different glasses, and then
we have different glasses
again.
Yeah, I just wear different glasses. Or I find out who the waiter is of the restaurant.
Yeah, we need.
And I'm like, oh, like, help me out, and then I'm just like in the back taking notes, and she's and I put like a little bug.
Yeah. I've been binging a lot of Iron Chef lately.
Incredible. I've been binging RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes, I've watched every season of Drag Race.
Yeah, I love me some Drag Race. I'm like rewatching it just for the vibes, but I feel like the theatrics of my plan and the like actual like kitchen-y stuff of your plan are coming together.
There we go. The reason why I bring up Iron Chef is because, like, by the way, the old Japanese Iron Chef from like the 90s, full episodes are on YouTube.
Incredible.
It's really cool. And like the thing that always gets me is that the commentators do all this work talking about the cooking like it's a sport, and then they don't get to eat it.
Oh, that sucks.
There's always this separate judging panel and this like chairman who does literally nothing. And then they're the ones who get to eat. So it's like it just reminds me of the media.
That's such a mood.
And it reminds me of what it would be like for you to cover this dinner.
Yeah.
And not get to eat it.
That's okay. Yeah. If we're talking about this as like a media thing, they would all be eating dinner.
And like, you'd be watching them.
We'd be like 10 feet away with like just like writing notes, starving, just like
starving with a bread basket.
If that. But yeah, oh man, that was like I was talking to someone last night. We did the game. You talk to all these like, big basketball players, coaches, all this stuff. And then I leave the game. I finish writing, I leave the game, and the TTC is shut down. Oh, no service on the TTC. It's like 11:30 at night. I need the TTC to get home. I live in the East End. So I have to take an Uber share. So it's like 1 second I'm talking to an NBA champion, all-star, very glamorous to the public.
Kyle Lowry, he recognized you.
All that stuff. Literally like cut to, and I'm in the back of this like Uber share. And the guy is like, the driver's like yelling at this person on the phone, trying to like figure out where they are so that they can get in the Uber share. And I'm just like sitting in the silent Uber share because I like the subway was shut down and all this stuff, and I'm trying to get home. It's like midnight. And yeah, that's like a very good analogy of like
what sports media is like. Yeah. Well, you really brought that full circle for us. So I appreciate you.
I'd love to tell a story.
There we go. We are the writers. We are the writers. Chelsea, thank you so much for joining me again this week. It's always so fun having you. Let us know what you're up to and where people can find you on the internets.
Yeah, so you can find me at Chelsea Leite on Twitter or Instagram, Raptors HQ on Twitter, Instagram, or .com, as we are. So yeah, we're doing a lot of fun stuff over there, trying to just cover this team and do all that stuff. And I do a lot of writing for other sites as well, so I always post that on like my personal stuff. So yeah, you can find me there. And if you're ever in Toronto and want to come to some comedy shows, let's do it up.
Boom. There we go. Thank you again, everyone, for listening and tuning in, and we will catch you again next week. Bye.